Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Because of Jesus podcast. This is episode number 25. So, Joel, you were on here for the quarter episode. How's that feel?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we've been doing it for a while now.
number 25. Yeah. So number 25, and we changed formats. If this is your first one you've been watching, maybe you're watching just because Joel's here with us. But we've been changed the format up a few episodes ago. Myself and John Mark did one. We kind of changed it from being like a sermon recap podcast to just talking about certain topics and conversations, trying to get to know. We want to peel back the curtain a little bit and kind of let you see some of the behind the scenes stuff. Also, you'll get to know our personalities in this as well. And so that's kind of the goal for this is to, like I said, for Palmetto Street people that are watching, for you guys to kind of see how things are done, how things are decided. And we've done that with me and Pastor John Mark talked about Easter. And then we had John Mark and Jessica talk about Mother's Day sermon. Russell talked about worship and food, which has been a popular one.
Lots of good food.
Yeah, lots of popular. That's been a fun one. We got a lot of comments about that one. But today, we'll welcome Joel. Joel is our student pastor here for almost a year now, so a full school year.
Yep.
So we're going to talk.
Will be a year.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit about student ministry, but then also we're coming a few days removed from Father's Day, and so when thinking about the podcast, the next podcast we want to do. I invited Joel to be a part of it because Joel is a new-ish dad.
Newish dad.
So
yeah.
Adelia is how old?
14 months.
So she's 14 months. So he's a new-ish dad. And so just kind of see the perspective behind that. You and Lacey aren't new in ministry, but you're new in full-time ministry with the baby, with the kid. And I can attest that it's been challenging. But before we get into all that, that's kind of what's to come. In this podcast, kind of a Father's Day, not necessarily a recap, but just two dads talking. So I guess we can call it that.
Yeah, two dads talking.
And but first thing, I want to ask you about some of your highlights. As I was a student pastor here for 5 years, John Mark for many years before that, and we're both still on staff. So we've seen and lived through it firsthand what it means to be the student pastor of Palmetto Street Church of God. So I want to hear some of the highlights that you've had over this last school year of being full-time in this job.
There's been quite a few. So some of the more recent ones, right at the end of the school year, we had a cool summer fun night kind of activity. Pastor came to me and he was like, "Hey, there's some work happening in the sanctuary." Mm-hmm. And I got about a week and a half or so of a heads up. And he's like, "I need the gym for service." And I said, "Okay, that sounds good." So I'm just going to throw everything else I had planned out the window, and we're going to do something fun that week. And it worked out because it was the week the kids were finishing school. Our seniors were all still in town. So we got some water slides out. My adults probably had just as good of a time as my students did. I had some awesome pictures of some of my leaders sliding down a water slide or going down the slip and slide. But
Kevin.
Yep, Kevin Cassidy, I'm calling you out right now. But anyways, it's that was a really fun event, and we had students that they all showed up in the same week. So the back was piled up with kids, and I'm glad all my workers came that week. But we had an awesome time. Middle school and high school kids, it was just a lot of fun. And I guess right before that, or I guess earlier in the year, one of my other favorite events we did this year with hanging out with students was our Thanksgiving. We moved it from a Wednesday this year because the Wednesdays just didn't work out this time, and we moved it on to a Sunday night, and I think it was either 50 or 60 middle and high schoolers here, and they all it was a big potluck, brought their own food, and that was fun. We got food from all over the place. Some parents brought fried chicken from IGA, and others had spent 3 and 4 hours cooking something in the oven. But it was really cool. And that's an event that the students are always looking forward to. So.
That's always one of my favorite ones. You and Lacey sent out a picture in the group chat about it, and I was just, there's certain moments that I miss being in that ministry, and a lot of moments, but there's specific highlights that we just talked about, and that's definitely one of them. We started doing ours on a Sunday, then we adjusted to a Wednesday, and it always depends on the calendar how things fall. And so, but that was always a highlight of our moment. Like you said, anything from IGA chicken to a Freeman's cake, which is always wonderful,
to Spanish rice.
Exactly. One year we had empanadas. It was just a huge potluck of stuff. So that's always a huge highlight. One other highlight I want to ask you about too, because it's always a highlight of mine. It's very kind of peeling back the curtain here. But one of those things is very stressful, and it's a lot that goes into it. A lot for a short amount of time that people see in service is graduation Sunday.
Yes.
Had a lot of graduates this year, just building on that every single year. Had a lot of college graduates and high school, so a mixture of both. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, all associates, all above. How many did you have in total?
I think it was 23 or 24 this year.
And then we had a few that wasn't in service, we still recognized, things like that. So tell us about some of the highlights of that day and maybe some of the things that people may not see behind the scenes that go into it.
Absolutely. So the highlights is really seeing their faces, seeing the students' faces, seeing the parents' faces. You know, we make the day about them, and then when you get to see it be a special moment for them, it makes it all worth it. It's not, you know, I got to be up there this year and talk to them and say their name in front of the congregation, but really watching them just be so excited that they're finishing this chapter, they've accomplished this big goal. I guess that's the moment that makes me feel good. Sure. It makes me sad because some of those kids this year were like my leaders in youth group, and it's always sad to see them go. So I mean, you understand that too, but you get to watch them go on and do big things, which is also really cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just think of a few over the years, you know. I'm not gonna start. Never mind. I won't do that. I won't start naming names because I'll leave somebody out. Like he forgot me. But, yeah, just seeing. I mean, just being out of this position for a year, out of your position for a year. I mean, seeing those that have. I mean, when I first got here, they were in middle school, and you were still leading the middle school ministry. You were leading the middle school ministry at the time, and so seeing a lot of them, grow up here essentially makes you feel a little older, but then also makes you feel proud too to see the growth that they've had and the closeness they've grown in their walk with Jesus too.
I think this senior group was the first group that I had starting as the middle school leader, 6th through 12th grade, and watching them come all the way through.
Yeah,
it's been pretty
that's
cool.
Full circle. That's we were the same way in our ministry in Savannah. We were the same way when we left there and came here. The last graduation class that we had, we got there when they were middle schoolers. Yep. And so that's kind of that same kind of full circle moment. Really cool. And so before everybody here today too, you said about saying names, kinesiology. That's how you say it? I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you.
Kinesiology.
No, it's always, I gave Joel a hard time there and beforehand because but you played it off and made a joke out of it. It was really good. You handled yourself really well in that moment because there's some names that you get that you have to say during graduation Sunday that are extremely difficult. And even though if you've known the kid for however many years, or if it's a new family that's been coming for a short time and you're just still getting to know them, first names, last names, and even what they plan to go do in the future.
Yep.
And so that I know that popped across your script.
I mean, I taught science for 4 years and never had any problem saying any of those words when I was teaching, and I got up on stage and I couldn't say
a lick
of it.
It happens. That stage is stage and microphone and everything else, and then when you got to read the entire, and it. One of those moments we ask families to sign up so we have preparation and no gifts and things like that, but we also want to know what they're doing to share that with the congregation. With there being 23, 24 students, it's hard to share their whole high school, career
everything
story, whatever. Everything they did. And so looking at that, it's like, okay, give me some bullet points of what you plan to do in your future. And so sometimes you get words like that thrown in there along with names.
And that you're talking about earlier, the things that people don't see. And, the slideshow looks awesome. The pictures look awesome. But what the congregation doesn't see is that that's like a month worth of blowing up their phones and their emails. And I need this picture. I need these bullet points. Hey, you've done everything besides the fact you haven't RSVP'd for the breakfast. Are you coming? And there's a lot of communication that goes into that. And you probably felt the same way, but then you get to the point and you're like, man, I'm bugging these people. I'm tired of asking them questions. I just wish they would answer all of it at the same time when I send it out.
Yeah, we are not just youth pastors, but we're asked to do certain events and plan certain things. So that therefore we are youth pastors / event planners.
Yes.
And being an event planner, getting RSVPs are very difficult if you've ever done that before. And so this as a PSA, sign up early. That's awesome. We love it. Not just for youth stuff, for anything. Sign up early and let us know that you're coming and things like that. Just, just a little PSA there.
Yeah, camp season, camp's next week. I still got high schoolers trying to sign up right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. So that's the fun highlighted stuff of student ministry and just in ministry in general. All good stuff.
Yep. And I guess the final thing about graduation Sunday, the part that I guess really nobody saw, that the students got to see and the parents got to see at the breakfast was that this year we got them all their own Bible.
Yeah.
And the, you got to hear me talk about it, but some of these Bibles that they wanted were really cool, and we ordered them. And then Lifeway or whoever, Christian bookstore, whoever I ordered them from was like, hey, we're not going to put their name in it because it's got this cool front, and I just wanted it embroidered on the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's got a cool design on the front or not. I still want their name on it. And so we called all the local Bible stores, and the only one that would go through and put the names on top of all of that embroidery was a little place in Sumter. And so I drove all the way out there twice to go take Bibles and go pick them up. That's just little stuff people don't see, but it's a big, it makes, as well as I do, it makes a lasting impact for students and families to know.
For sure,
even if they don't realize that
that's
what you had to do.
And
so.
you and Lacey did, I give you guys credit for this, you did an awesome job with the coordination of everything, the breakfast that morning, but also I know as a first year doing it, giving everybody an opportunity to go sign something in the Bibles was really cool. And so I know momentum will pick up with that if you decide to do that continually in the future. I know the students appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Well,
that's cool.
Some awesome highlights, and you guys got to see some behind the scenes stuff from there too, some planning and things like that. But I want to kind of shift gears a little bit because we just did finish Father's Day this past Sunday. Pastor Neil preached a message on the blessed house. If you haven't got a chance to watch or listen to that, you can do that on our YouTube channel and on our podcast. Incredible message there. But wanted to talk about just being a dad, and some of this will be being a dad in ministry, but then also want to preface this by saying Joel's been a dad for 14 months. I've been a dad for 6 years and 4 or 5 months. So we obviously don't know everything. Obviously, we're still learning, we're still figuring out. But being a dad in ministry has its challenges, and Pastor said this before, I think he said this on Sunday, and I totally agree that being a dad is the hardest thing that you will do. The hardest thing. And so that's not to scare anybody that's not a dad. It is the hardest thing we'll do because you cannot prepare for it. You cannot anticipate the things that are coming. Also I heard on a podcast earlier, a couple of days ago, one of our leading pastors in our denomination saying, marriage is easy, but being a parent is so difficult. And I was like, wow, that's really good. Our pastor says, so it's kind of a relaying thing that being a parent's hard. So, some of the things that we like to talk about, is just kind of being real and being open and relying on Jesus for everything. And so kind of transition here. What are maybe some of those moments in your life the last 14 months or recently? What's some of those funny dad moments that you've had with Adelia lately?
Oh, man. The first one that comes up, can it be a little gross?
Oh, for sure.
Because being a father is just gross.
Kids are disgusting.
They're disgusting. I don't even sometimes I look at my own kid and I'm like, do I even want to kiss you on the back of the head right now?
Exactly.
You're disgusting. But anyways, me and Lacey are coming home from a ministry event. I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And we live on Pamplico Highway. And so for anybody that lives out that direction, there's an infamous train that is right before you cross over near Slim Chickens. And so we got stuck there at I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And all of a sudden we hear little grunts from the back car seat, and we're like, oh gosh, we got to hurry up and get home. I'm like 2 seconds from the house. Every parent knows what the little grunts mean, right? And next thing I know, we're sitting there, the train's going by, and Lacey's gagging, laughing, coughing, oh my gosh, what is that
Windows
smell? Windows go down, but then it just smells like train and gas. And anyways, come to find out, we get home just a few minutes later after gagging, waiting on this train. And it's funny now, we get home, I go to pick her up out of the car seat, and I said, oh, you're going to have to help me. She used the bathroom, and it did not stay in the diaper because she had one leg propped up while she was sitting in that car seat. And she was comfy, and it all came out the side of her leg and diaper. And it was just sitting there. Right in the car seat. Oh, yeah. It's funny now. I was not real excited then. And then having to learn how to take the car seat cover out and clean it. And I pretty much just pressure washed that thing down. Right. Yep. So, but that was a funny moment looking back, and there's so many, but that one's pretty recent. So
you saying that reminds me, I'm a golfer and I watch golf, and so Scotty Scheffler just won a tournament a few weeks back in Texas, the number one golfer in the world, and his wife and son are there on the green, on the side of the green, waiting for him to come up. And the camera's obviously watching, seeing these moments. And there's been a lot of cool moments with him being a new dad, things like that. And so she passes him off, or he goes to grab the boy, and and you see this big old stain on the back, and you know what it is clearly. And it is obviously has been there for a while because it's starting to change a little bit of color on the shirt and everything else like that. And some hot mic kind of catches her like, hey, he's got poop all up his back. From previous, she cleaned him up, but obviously I guess she didn't have a change of clothes, but it was like that full circle dad moment. Yeah. Everybody on, internet sharing everything afterwards, like full circle dad moment for Scotty, showing a kid with a big old poop stain on his back. And so those moments are obviously, going back to it. Yeah. Kids, no matter if they're babies or, I'm a little OCD, and I have to think about certain things the way I want it cleaned and things like that. Mm-hmm. And kids are gross, man.
They're so gross.
They're gross. So we can label this two dads talking about gross kids. Just change titles as we go through it. But so you and Lacey's been in ministry for a good while now, mm-hmm. whether leading the middle school ministry and then taking over the student ministry last August. How has being a dad changed the way that you guys do ministry?
The first thing that has completely changed is Sunday morning routine, and I'm sure you can understand that. We kind of made the decision, and every family's different, and I respect the way every family kind of does their Sunday morning routine, but me and Lacey made the decision that we're just going to wake up earlier on Sunday mornings, and we're going to try better to get here earlier, because now everything takes twice as long because she's with us. And so instead, we could kind of roll in right at time. Pastor told us to be here like 8 o'clock, an hour before. We're normally here about 7:30 now at the least, because everything takes so much longer. But now that I'm full-time, I can, as long as there's not a bunch of parties in the gym, I can kind of set up before. So it changes the speed in which you do things, but also it's changed even how much Lacey's been able to help me. And she still helps me tremendously in ministry, but with a little one, as you know, that changes the dynamic. She can't be here at a drop of a hat or anything like that to come help anymore. So we have to plan things out a little bit better. Our communication has to be better. I think those are probably all things you probably understand.
Yeah,
there,
man.
so.
That was to piggyback off that. I'm glad you said that, because the biggest change from us having Calvin was obviously the change of having somebody else to having somebody to take care of, like obviously all the time. But not necessarily losing, but not having your partner, your person you rely on the most, there with you all the time in ministry. Now, granted, they're there all the time, but their season has changed. Their ministry has changed, because not that ours has a dad isn't, but we're the pastor. This is our calling. This is our ministry. We're the pastor, not only of our home, but of the ministry that we're called to be in. But losing your partner and losing your helpmate, the time that they gave you is extremely difficult. Taylor in ministry back in Savannah before we had Calvin 6 months before we moved here. Taylor in ministry there and Taylor in ministry here looks completely different, which was something that I didn't get prepared for. Nobody told me, and not to say that somebody should have, but it was one of those things I had to learn, like, okay, wow, this is way different. And some people, kind of being a little raw and real here, which is what I want us to do in the time we have left. People may see them differently. I mean, now you and Lacey's been here for a long time, but nobody here in Florence knows the ministry that Taylor did in Savannah. Yeah, because she was completely different as far as like not having a kid and what she was able to give. What she was able to do and what she was able to give and how she was able to serve. And there's no fault to that, but it was one of the things as a dad that I was like, wow, this is, as a dad and a pastor, it was totally different.
So fatherhood has given me an entirely new perspective to the role and the calling of a pastor's wife, especially a pastor's wife that is a mom. And so, because it adds something that's totally different. And so to give honor to all of the pastors' wives who are moms and all the moms out there in general, is that your kid probably changed your season of life in a way that you never expected, but your calling is still important and it's still valuable. And I'm thankful for whatever time, I'm sure as you are, that Lacey can give me in ministry, even if that has changed. And
Yeah.
I know you are for Taylor as
And
well.
the biggest thing with us to change, I mean, we moved from Savannah to here. It kind of going. That was our season transition there with having kids and moving. Is we moved here with no family, and so that just made it even that much more difficult. I mean, now we do have family here for the last over a year or so, but that just made it that much more difficult because it's like, okay, you got church family, and it's like, yeah, but you and I both we cut from the same cloth as far as this. We don't want to put a burden on even family and other people like, hey, can you watch my kid while I go do this? Yeah. Now you got family members that are prying her away from you like, hey, I got this, no problem. But you don't want to give that up as a burden. Like we limit ourselves how, with even sending the kids to Taylor's parents' house, like we limit ourselves to how often we send them over there just because we don't want to be a burden to them, no matter how often they say, hey, you can send them here anytime, whatever. We understand, and we don't want to do that too. So that's been the biggest adjustment I think for us. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a huge change, not just for us, but for our partner, our helpmate, our spouse as well.
And they struggle as much as we see it. They also struggle with it.
Yeah.
Me and Lacey have had several conversations of how different the season is because of having a kid, and there's parts that we took for granted, not even realizing it.
And I want to specify this too. Is not just in ministry in general, but specifically student and youth ministry, where the demand for being everywhere all the time is there. And you see that now. You saw that before, but you see that now having a kid, the ball games, the recitals, this, that, everything, the trips, do I take the baby? Do I not take the baby? Whatever it may be, it's just heightened that much more. And we can speak from that because we have that experience, but it just seems that much more heightened. And I can speak to that now, not being a student ministry anymore. The burden that's not as much there, not having to do those things. We still have pastoral ministries and pastoral duties that we have, but, I'm not having to take 10, 12 kids to the beach on a Monday and figure out how to do it with, a baby. Do it with a baby and things like that. So time's getting away from us here, but no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that, I know will help somebody watching. Maybe it's just one guy or somebody that'll watch, however long from now. And so piggyback off this is a tough one. It's not a tough one, but it's a tough one to kind of be real on because what's a lesson that God has taught you through your kids?
Man, and I think every dad can agree with this one. I thought I was patient. I had been praying for patience for years. I was a very impatient high schooler. And so this is a prayer of mine for a long time. And even like Lacey's had to call me out on it at times, like, Joel, she's a year old. Like, I know you're frustrated, you're tired right now, but like check yourself, and I have to take that and run with it. Like, absolutely, you're 100% right. And so it's waking up when I leave this place, especially with a little one. It's got to be about them, and it's got to be about family. And so I know you're like me, you're driven by your work. So sometimes having to learn to flip that switch is probably the most important thing. Because I would before, but me and Lacey would talk about work, and then we would slowly transition into the whatever else our day had. But now with the kid, it really has to be more sudden, because they don't need to hear about your day. They want you to be dad when you come home.
Oh, for sure. Pastor talked about the same thing on Sunday. He talked about when he shows up at home, that is his kingdom, that is his fortress. He wants to be protected, and he sits down in his chair. And as soon as he sits down in his chair, Ashton says, "Hey, Dad, let's go throw baseball." Yeah. And it's the same thing happens to me. Same thing will happen to you. Yep. I mean, granted, right now it's Lacey saying, "Hey, take this kid," but it's like, it happens. Calvin's like, "Hey, let's play a game." Then there's certain times. The other night, for instance, I sat down. It was a long day. I was at the campground getting beds put together and throwing a U-Haul truck for camp, and a lot of things happened. And then I was here. And so just the grind of the day, and I sat down. I didn't even sit down on the end of the couch where I could put my feet up. I sat down on the end where I just had an armrest, and I just passed out. And I told Taylor sorry later. I was like, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I just sat down and passed out." And lights were on, kids were running around, but I just knocked out. And it's where those moments is like, man, I just missed it there as a dad. I just completely missed it. But We do have to check ourselves, and
Hmm.
usually our wives are there to check us for us.
Yeah.
Check us for
Yeah.
us.
We might get frustrated in the moment, then I'm appreciative of it later.
Yeah.
So
So there's one thing I wanted to bring up, kind of one of the last two things I want to bring up because I feel this a lot. In the last 14 months,
mm,
have you felt dad guilt when ministry has pulled you away from home?
oh, absolutely. Feel it all the time. I feel it the next 2 weeks. Because not knowing how often I'm going to be able to see them or talk to them,
Yep.
and with camp coming up, like I have to be there for camp because those are also my kids. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? I need to be there, but also the dad guilt of like, am I really going to be away from my kid 10 days out of the next 14 days? And that's kind of, or 9.5 days out of the next,
Yep.
whatever. It's rough. So yeah, absolutely. I've definitely felt some dad guilt, and I think every dad deals with it, but ministry it's a little different because you're giving of yourself to everybody, and you still want to give yourself to your kid, and
Yep.
it's just tough. Yeah.
I probably had the biggest moment of dad guilt this past March. Um, Coming out of being the student pastor here, I was invited to serve in a new role at Winterfest. I'd always been asked to serve in various positions at Winterfest, but I never wanted to leave our group.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was invited to do that. And so the dates hadn't been announced yet, but I just automatically said, yeah, I would love to be a part of that. Obviously, check with Taylor, make sure she was
Hmm.
100% supportive and saying, yeah, you should do that. That'd be awesome. Great opportunity. Winterfest fell on Calvin's birthday,
Mm.
um, which was very, very, very difficult. And it was one of those things where I could have backed out, um, but I didn't because I'd already made a commitment and all those other things. But the biggest moment of dad guilt was probably at that moment, and it'll get worse. I'll tell you, it's 14. She's 14 months old.
Yeah.
It'll get worse, the dad guilt, because as soon as when they start talking,
Yeah.
when they start talking and they understand, like, hey, are you coming home with us? Nobody, I got to stay here.
Yeah.
And it's coming from Calvin now as he's getting older. But missing his birthday wasn't a huge deal to him, but it was to me because my family and her family, Taylor's family, planned a weekend at the lake with him. And so had a blast. I had a FOMO moment, but he had a blast. FaceTime and all that stuff. But man,
Mhm.
it was difficult. And it gets even more difficult when they're asking, hey, you coming home and things like that. And especially the dad guilt comes when you make a concerted effort to be there every part of the day that you possibly can, and then the times where you just can't because you get pulled away,
Mhm.
or you have responsibilities to your job and to your calling. um, that's where it gets tough. Is like, okay, he's 6,
Yeah.
but he's still asking the question, are you
Yeah.
coming home, and
Yeah.
when you going to be home, and things like that.
Uh,
And yeah.
Adele, can't put but like two words together right now. But I did have a little bit of a dad moment. Lacey texted me and she goes, "So your baby's asking for you?" And I said, "She's asking for me." She sent me a little video and she was getting her out of the crib and she's like, "Where'd Dad die? Where'd Dad
Mm-hmm.
die?" And it was a time I would
Oh,
normally
for
be
sure.
home. She knew, and I wasn't there because we were. I can't remember, we were here at the office late or if I was doing something ministry related. But um, where'd Dad die? Where'd Dad die? So I can only imagine it gets tougher. So
And if anybody has that dad guilt, the one thing I've learned, especially over the last few years of Calvin being talking and understanding, kind of how life works and how mom and dad goes to work and how, just the schedule and everything else. He loves the church. He loves being here. But there's moments where, hey, it just is not anywhere on the conversation,
mhm.
anywhere. Um, we could easily come up here and come shoot basketball, but we go do other stuff so that way we're not here all the time. And I don't want him to ever grow into the resentment of, hey, dad's at church or dad's at work or anything like that.
Yeah,
And so while it is most of the time the dad guilt just falls on us, it
yeah,
don't fall on anybody else,
yeah.
especially if there's a healthy balance to it. And so if there's any kind of advice for somebody that, man, I've been experiencing dad guilt with work or whatever it may be, man, just make those other moments as special as you possibly can.
Mhm.
Take the time to take them out golfing or take them by themselves to the playground or whatever it may be. Make those moments special. And trust me, those moments will outweigh great and far above
Mhm.
the moments where you may feel guilty about yourself.
Absolutely, and it's just taking the you can't wallow in the guilt, right?
Yeah,
You have to
for sure.
you have to take every opportunity as it comes, and you might feel bad about it, but continue striving to be there because they're going to remember
Yeah,
us being
for
there.
sure.
So
We're coming up, and we usually try to do these in 30 minutes or less. We're coming up on the 30-minute mark, right at it, or maybe a minute or more. But I can't end this thing without asking, from your perspective as a dad and a youth pastor, and being in ministry for a while now, your whole life being here at the church. What is something that you think that every dad listening maybe need to hear today, or whenever they listen to this podcast? What's something that you can just share with them? Your short amount of experience, but still you're wise beyond your years, and you've had a lot of experience doing other things and pastoring kids too. What's everything that you think a dad needs to hear? One thing that dad needs to hear today.
that your job as a dad is a high calling, and I know Pastor probably talked about this Sunday somewhat. Um, but to remember that, like, to those kids, you're the guy, you're the man. Like, they look up to you, they love you, and I guess, encourage. You got to find moments to encourage yourself. So finding those moments to take rest, so to say. If it's your 10-minute car ride home from the office, pump yourself up, get out all the frustration for the day, and be there and ready to jump in with your family. And that's something I'm still learning right now, and I'm not even 100% perfect on.
There's so much wisdom in that car ride home.
Yeah.
What you just said, so much. Take that minute, man, just to breathe and to get mentally ready to be home.
And if you're stuck in work mode, like, you got to start figuring out what gets you out of it. What song gets me away from the office? What verse gets me away? What do I need to call somebody? Do I need to call my wife on the way home? And just, like, I need to get a few things out before I get there. Whatever the case may be, you got to find, I guess, the opportunity to kind of self-reflect and then be ready to go all in when you get home. I guess that would be my encouragement, and to remember that your calling is great. It's greater than any work or job we're doing. Even us here, Scripture tells us that is our family is our number one ministry. And so, dads, you have this ultimate responsibility, which is scary, but it's also really cool. And to remember that your kids put God first, put your family next, and everything else is just going to kind of work out. So you got to put things in that order. So
awesome stuff. I mean, there's so much wisdom, like I said, in the car ride home, getting your mind straight for being at home, and your number one ministry is your family. Don't ever lose that. Kind of to close it out here, I want to share mine, and heard this a few weeks ago, and it's something that I witnessed and that I've lived by and things like that. But it's I mean, for lack of a better word, a beautiful reminder. The biggest thing that I've learned about God and about myself as a dad is how much He truly loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And as a dad, when you have that little boy or that little girl, the love that you have for your wife and the love that you have for them are different. But you truly see the face of God, and you truly see the love that God has for you, because you experience that love with your children. If you love your children this much and to this level, how much more do you think our Father loves us?
Mm-hmm.
And so learning that love about how truly God loves us through that perspective, and it's something you can only experience with a kid or with a child, however that comes about.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I experienced growing up, and the one thing that my kids hear it so much, they're going to get tired of hearing it when they're older. And I say it because I know the impact it had on my life. Is I love you and I'm proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
My dad said that to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact it'll have on your child moving forward will be unmeasurable, invaluable, and undescribable. As often as you can, tell your kids, I love you and I'm proud of you in some way, whether it's together, separate, different moments of the day, whatever it may be. I have a fun thing I do with Sam and Calvin. It's kind of been, now that Sam's talking more and she's off the chain crazy, but to slow her down, we have this little game where I say, hey, I want to tell you a secret. And she comes over all excited, and then Calvin does the same thing, all excited, and I'll just whisper in their ear, I love you. Yep. And they look at me, and then they say, "Hey, I have a secret too," and they come in your ear and they say, "I love you too." And man, it's just one of those things where you can't describe it, and you can't get away from it, and it needs to be said over and over and over again. It was said somewhere in a song or somewhere. Wear out the words, "I love you,"
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we have to do as dads, moms too, but as dads. The power of the voice that you have to tell your kids, "I love you and I'm proud of you." There's no doubt that I'm the person I am today because my dad and mom told me that they loved me as much as they
Absolutely.
did. You could probably say the
I feel
same
the
thing.
same way.
And it's one thing that we're over 30 minutes now, but if somebody even catches the end of this podcast or catches the end of watching this on YouTube, tell your kids all the time, multiple times a day, "I love you and I'm proud of you," even when you may not be proud of them.
Yeah.
Calvin's 6 and he messes up, and he does things that's like that. It makes no sense at all. But I'm proud of you and I love you no matter what. And I had a reminder of that being at a conference a few weeks ago. There's an incredible teaching from Jonathan Rosenzog in Minnesota. I mean, man, it was powerful, and he just had that reminder just in his talk. Just, "I love you and I'm proud of you." I'm like, yeah, I got it. Like, I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
But man, how important is it to do that?
And I know from hearing like my parents talk, and I won't add too much more. I know we're close on time. That
Past time, but nobody's
that
stopping us.
that I've seen the impact being from talking to my parents about why they did that with me and the reasons that they were so selective in making sure they did that. But as of being a school teacher and a student pastor, parents like this seems like a little thing, but like,
Yeah.
and this might step on
Yeah.
your toes just a little bit. I can tell which kid gets told that
Yeah.
is loved and they're proud of. When they walk through the door, the way they carry themselves, it affects everything. It seems like such a small thing with parents, but if you're not daily looking at your kids saying, "I love you and I'm proud of you," and taking those special moments with them, I feel like you're missing out. You're missing on this golden opportunity to release the potential within your child.
Yeah.
It's almost like breaking generational chains by just doing that all in itself. So if there's anybody listening and you've struggled with, maybe you've went through some mental or even verbal abuse as a kid, this is your way of breaking chains. This is your way of letting go of that generational hurt. It's by sharing the love of God with your kids. And I mean, it's such an awesome testimony.
Yeah.
So
Good stuff, man. Well, we won't keep you guys any longer. Happy Father's Day, belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you so much for watching today. Share this podcast, even if it's not on, if it's 2 months from now and this Father's Day is over with or whatever. Just take this moment and watch this and share this to somebody that may need encouragement today. Thank you, Joel, for joining us.
absolutely.
We have more of the staff members and more special guests here coming in the future for the Because of Jesus podcast. This has been episode 25. Thank you guys for joining. Watch, subscribe, like, and share all that awesome stuff, and we'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.